So, you want to own a jewelry store, and of every business in this series, this one has the most seductive number attached to it. The markups are legendary. A ring that a jeweler buys for a few $100s sells for $1,000. Many stores use a pricing rule called keystone, doubling the wholesale price. And plenty go further, to 3 or 4 times cost. On the sticker, jewelry looks like one of the highest margin products you could ever sell. So it should be one of the most profitable businesses in this series, right? It isn't. And that gap between the enormous markup on the tag and the thin profit in the owner's pocket is the entire story of this business. Because a jewelry store is a case study in one of the most important and least understood ideas in all of retail. That a high markup and a high profit are not the same thing, and confusing the two has bankrupted more jewelers than any recession. To understand why, we have to follow the money from the display case all the way to the bottom line, and discover that the shiny thing in the case is often the worst way the store makes money. Let's start with what it costs to get in, because jewelry has a hidden entry cost unlike anything else we've covered. The store itself isn't extraordinary. A retail space, secure display cases, an alarm system, insurance. But then there's the inventory. And jewelry inventory is uniquely, brutally expensive, because you are literally stocking your shelves with gold, platinum, and diamonds. A modest independent store can easily have tens of thousands, often hundreds of thousands, of dollars tied up in the cases. One store listed for sale carried around $50,000 in inventory in a shop under 1,000 square feet. A larger operation can have millions sitting in the vault and the displays. And here's the first thing nobody tells you. That inventory isn't just expensive to buy. It's expensive to hold. Because unlike a grocery store, where products fly off the shelf in days, jewelry sits. Industry analysis pegs typical inventory at around 180 days, meaning a piece can sit in the case for 6 months before it sells. Read that again. You spend thousands of dollars on a ring, and on average, that money is frozen in glass for half a year before it converts back into cash. This is the concept that quietly governs the entire business: dead capital. Every ring in the case is money you already spent, sitting still, earning nothing, while your rent, your insurance, and your staff have to be paid this month, in cash, whether anything sells or not. A jewelry store can be sitting on $1 million of beautiful merchandise and still struggle to make payroll, because merchandise isn't money until someone buys it. Now, let's look at that famous markup, and why it's such a trap. The gross margins are genuinely high. Jewelry retailers typically run gross margins somewhere between 42 and 50%, and specialty and custom work can push much higher. On paper, that looks spectacular. But here's the number that shatters the illusion. Look at the publicly traded jewelry companies, the ones that have to file real audited financials. Their gross margins sit in that healthy 40 to 58% band, exactly as expected. But their operating margins, what's left after the cost of actually running the business, sits somewhere between -1% and +6%. Read that again. Companies with a 50% gross margin can end up with an operating margin of essentially zero, or even a loss. Where did all that margin go? It got eaten by the cost of the business itself. The rent on a retail location nice enough that people trust it with a major purchase. The insurance on a vault full of precious materials. The security. The knowledgeable sales staff who spend an hour with each customer. The marketing to get anyone through the door in the first place. And above all, the dead capital. The cost of financing hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory that just sits there. As one industry analysis put it perfectly, the trap is assuming that markup is your profit. The markup is real. It's just almost entirely consumed before it reaches you. So if the product barely makes money after all that, how do successful jewelers actually earn a living? This is where the business gets genuinely interesting, because the real profit engines are usually not the shiny things in the case. There are 3 of them, and most customers never think about any. The first is emotional, not physical: the engagement ring. Bridal jewelry is the single most important category in most stores, and it consistently delivers the highest margins. Not because the materials are different, but because of the psychology of the purchase. When someone is buying an engagement ring, they are not comparison shopping the way they would for a television. They're buying a moment, a symbol, a story they'll tell for the rest of their life. Price sensitivity nearly disappears. Economists have a name for goods like this: Veblen goods. Items where demand can actually rise as the price increases, because the high price is part of the appeal and the signal. A diamond ring isn't just tolerated at a high price. The high price is doing part of the work. Diamond rings alone can account for around a third of a store's total sales volume, at the highest average price of anything in the shop. The engagement ring is where the emotional premium lives, and emotion is the most profitable thing a jeweler sells. The second profit engine has no inventory cost at all: repair and service. Ring sizing, restringing pearls, replacing clasps, repairing prongs, cleaning, appraisals, watch batteries. These services carry very high margins because you're selling skilled labor rather than expensive materials. There's no diamond to finance, no gold sitting in a case for 6 months. And they do something even more valuable. They bring the same customers back into the store again and again, and pull in new ones who don't yet buy jewelry from you. Look at that store I mentioned earlier, the small one listed for sale. According to its own numbers, more than 30% of its income came from repair, on total revenue of around $30,000 a month against roughly $5,200 in expenses. A significant chunk of that store's profitability wasn't the jewelry in the cases at all. It was the workbench in the back. The third engine is custom and bespoke work, designing one-of-a-kind pieces. Custom designs can yield profit margins of 60 to 70% because a unique piece can't be price compared against anything. Nobody can walk down the street and find the same ring cheaper because it doesn't exist anywhere else. Custom work escapes the single most dangerous force in jewelry retail, which we're about to talk about: price competition. Because here's the macro problem hanging over this entire industry, and it's the reason the shiny thing in the case is such a poor way to compete. Standard, brand name, off-the-shelf jewelry is a commodity. The exact same diamond stud earrings or the same branded watch are sold by 100 other stores, and increasingly by online retailers with almost no overhead. And when a product is identical everywhere, the only thing left to compete on is price. An independent store carrying the same mass-produced pieces as an online giant is in a fight it usually cannot win, because the online seller has no expensive retail lease, no vault full of idle inventory, no floor staff. This is why jewelers who survive push relentlessly toward the things that can't be commoditized. The emotional bridal sale, the service counter, the custom design. The moment you're selling the identical item as everyone else, your beautiful markup collapses into a price war. And there's a second macro force, one that shaped this entire business and that every jeweler should understand. The diamond itself is a masterclass in manufactured value. For most of the 20th century, the company De Beers controlled the vast majority of the world's diamond supply. And in 1947, an advertising campaign gave the world the phrase, "A diamond is forever." That campaign did something almost no marketing has ever achieved. It took a stone that is not especially rare in geological terms and cemented it as the non-negotiable symbol of engagement, while simultaneously teaching people that you should never resell it. Because a diamond is forever. Think about how economically brilliant that is. By making resale feel like an emotional betrayal, the industry suppressed the one thing that could have undermined new sales: a second-hand market. It's why a diamond loses a large share of its value the moment you walk out of the store, even though the price tag never suggested it. The customer isn't really buying a resellable asset. They're buying a symbol, and symbols don't have a resale desk. This, by the way, is the great disruption facing jewelers right now. Lab-grown diamonds. They are physically and chemically identical to mined diamonds, but cost a fraction to produce. They've given jewelers a way to sell affordable luxury at strong margins. But they're also quietly undermining the scarcity story the whole diamond mythology was built on. If a flawless diamond can be grown in a lab for a small fraction of the mined price, the idea that a diamond is a rare and precious store of value gets harder to sustain every year. Jewelers are navigating that shift in real time, and it cuts both ways. Better margins on the sale, but erosion of the very mystique that let them charge so much in the first place. There's also a real commodity problem underneath all this. The raw materials aren't stable. Gold hit record highs recently, trading around $4,200 an ounce in mid-2026, up more than 50% from the prior year's average, with some forecasts pointing higher still. When gold and platinum spike like that, a jeweler's inventory becomes even more expensive to replace. The dead capital problem gets worse, and passing those costs to a customer already hesitating over a luxury purchase becomes a delicate balancing act. So, does owning a jewelry store actually work as a business? The gap between outcomes is enormous, and it comes down almost entirely to whether the owner understands where the money really comes from. In the good scenario, you run a store built around the things that can't be commoditized. Bridal and engagement is your anchor, where emotional buyers pay premium prices without cross-shopping. You have a busy repair and service counter generating high-margin revenue with zero inventory cost and pulling customers back through your door month after month. You offer custom design that no online competitor can price match. You manage your inventory ruthlessly, keeping less dead capital frozen in the cases and turning your stock faster than the 6-month average. Your markup, finally, survives the journey to the bottom line, and you clear a genuinely healthy net margin. The well-run independents can reach the higher end of the range and build real wealth, because a trusted local jeweler is a relationship a customer keeps for decades of anniversaries, upgrades, and milestones. In the realistic bad scenario, you fell for the markup. You stocked your beautiful cases with expensive, brand name, off-the-shelf inventory, sank a fortune into it, and watched it sit, 6 months, a year, as dead capital while your rent came due every single month. You're carrying the highest overhead in retail, security, insurance, a prime lease, skilled staff, and you're selling the identical pieces a customer can find cheaper online in 30 seconds. So you're forced to discount, and every discount eats the margin you were counting on. Gold spikes and your replacement costs climb. You're sitting on $1 million of gorgeous merchandise and quietly unable to make payroll, because the shiny things in the case were never actually where the money was. Because that's the real lesson behind the glass. A jewelry store looks like a business that sells jewelry. The best ones barely do. The diamonds in the case are mostly there to draw people in and to anchor the emotional purchases. The engagement ring, the anniversary upgrade, where price stops mattering. The actual profit hides in the places customers overlook. The repair bench in the back, the custom design nobody else can copy, and the powerful, century-old psychology that makes a stone feel priceless and unresellable at the same time. The markup on the tag is the illusion. The relationship, the service, and the story are the business.